first place with a score of 88.85. The 2013 Bands of America St. George Regional Champion, the American Forecasting.
In the spring of 1986, band students at American Fork High School met 3 candidates for Director of Bands to replace Dr. Don Peterson, who was leaving for a position at Brigham Young University. They overwhelmingly preferred Mr. John Miller.
And I remember John conducting and talking to the students. I was pretty taken with John because he was so sincere and such a good man and such a good educator.
He wasn't throwing credentials at us, or he wasn't throwing previous places that had been. He was all about the students.
As I sat there quite nervous about the response, it came back pretty unanimous from all the students. They said, "We like Mr. Miller." And they said, "Why?" And their answer was, "He cares about us instead of about him." And that's really what made the difference.
His arrival that fall was greeted with homemade signs in the halls.
There were signs put up all around the school. It's Miller time, you know, which obviously was a slogan from a beer company, but it worked.
It was pretty difficult, and he was coming down to an unknown and following Dr. Peterson, which was really scary for him. He would come home to Idaho on the weekends, and then he'd take a load of stuff and put it in a storage unit, but he'd cry as he left every weekend. So it was a big change for him and a difficult move, but once we got here and got going, it was one that he's never looked back at. He knew that that was the right thing that he needed to be doing at the time.
It was the beginning of something long and wonderful, but it was not the first time someone had noticed that what John Miller really cares about is people.
I played trumpet at Snake River High School when Mr. Miller was teaching at Blackfoot across the river. We knew he had a strong program, but what we heard from all of his students and what we saw when we got to play in a band with him sometimes was what he cared most about was the students.
I've seen many, many times where John has gone out of his way to help and work with kids and to make sure that they're okay.
He's not just a band director. He's been my ecclesiastical leader, and he was on staff when I was at Woodbadge. How does he have time to be on staff at Woodbadge?
It's not about his glory, you know, to be on the cover of a music education magazine, to be on, you know, anything. It's we're here to give these kids this experience.
John is a genuine, humble person. In a job like his, with all the notoriety that they've had through the years with that program, it'd be real easy for John to be real boastful and look what I've created. But there's never been a time I've ever seen that from him. And of course that also reflects to the students that he teaches.
I think his motivation is 1, love of people, and 2, love of students, wanting students to be successful. It's never about John Miller. It's about those students.
The John you see now is really the John that's always been there. Sincere, honest, kind-hearted. He's pretty much the same, yeah.
When American Fork High School's class of 2016 gathers for commencement, Mr. Miller will conduct his last performance as Director of Bands. We can already judge the quality of his legacy, but it's far too soon, generations too soon, to measure its magnitude.
John is an amazing person, and he's immediately endearing to everyone, even those who are intimidated by him. So they look at him and think, wow, he shouldn't be so nice to the rest of us, but he's so sincere, And he's so interested in everybody being successful that it's contagious.
How many 15, 16, 17-year-old kids get to experience excellence in their lives? He gave them that opportunity. State championships for all those years, the Rose Bowl, the Macy's Parade, all those experiences, they experienced excellence. They had that taste. Many adults never get to experience that level of excellence in their lives. So my challenge always to the students was stop and reflect. Look what he's provided for you. Can you now carry that excellence through the rest of your life?
He has the ability to get kids to believe in themselves and to work hard to achieve, and that's where the excellence of American Fork High School Marching Band comes from.
Every time I see him walk off the field with his kids, he's this proud person, like a proud father. And he just has this glow about him. And you'll find it funny that I say that, but he just has this aura, this glow about him, that he's just so proud of his kids the way they performed.
There have been hundreds of trophies and awards, dozens of state and regional championships, adventures in California, New York, Arizona, Indiana, and elsewhere, and a handful of heartbreaks.
Losing band members, losing a staff member, that was after I had left the school. But when those tragedies hit, to see his true caring for each individual student, knowing what they were feeling, knowing the families and what they were feeling, and reaching out to try and help those.
I think it helped him stay focused on the students instead of the product. I think it brought him back to that. It would bring him back to, wow, that's what's really important. Because when you start to win and you start to worry about not winning, and it's easy to get focused on the product rather than the participants. And that the tragedy would always cause us to look back and go, okay, whoa, are we focused where we want to be? Are we doing what we want to do?
Any musicians in the world know about passion and feeling right now, it's you guys. So put that in the music, please. Put that in the music.
We said this a lot lately, but we love you. And what's really neat is our sense of love amongst each of you for each other. Sections are gone. This is the band.
And again, I think that's one of the great legacies that John Miller has left, is not only was he a great teacher, but he left a legacy in a lot of families of that caring and loving that he showed for each of those students.
Above all, there have been students. Thousands of them, yes, but they have mattered one at a time.
What does John learn from his students? The one thing he has said is that once he got kids of his own, he became more sympathetic with the students and what's going on with them. And so maybe that has tempered him a little bit that way, that he is more accepting of students as they come through and their problems and things. But he's always loved kids. That's why he went into teaching. He loved kids and he loved music.
He respected them as people. He respected them as musicians. He respected that they would work hard, and in turn they turned around and respected him. And they never wanted to let him down. There was just that respect and that love that do anything to us. He could have yelled out and they would have been happy, but to see if he were ever disappointed, that would have been the worst thing that he could have ever done for them. But again, he never showed that. He just had that love and respect anytime he dealt with the students.
He'll always be remembered as the person he is and the program that he ran. It was always very respectful. It was always very classy. That's what I would explain it. It was always a class organization, class act. Those kids would be the first kids to shake hands with other members of other schools. You know, you don't see that. Kids don't learn that on their own. That comes from a great leader that says, we must respect everybody.
Tomorrow, next year, and a generation from now, in 1,000 homes and workplaces and schools, A young musician will practice his instrument a few minutes longer. A math student will work some extra problems to be sure she understands. A teacher will find new ways to make tomorrow's lesson more memorable for her most challenging students. An athlete will shoot 50 extra free throws and run some extra laps after practice. Someone at work will make one more painstaking improvement to a thing which was already good enough.
He's just the ultimate teacher because he teaches them, he teaches everybody that's around him. And he has a genuine love for this program.
This will happen in part because a student learned the nature of work and the price of excellence in a high school band from a teacher, leader, and friend named John Miller. Tomorrow, next week, and 50 years from now, in American Fork and in other places far and near, someone will befriend and encourage a struggling neighbor. Someone will help a room full of youth discover their value and make their place in the world. A leader will stand back and let others grow and shine. Someone who has failed will try again, patiently, courageously. Someone who has succeeded will walk with humility and grace, and marching bands will cheer enthusiastically for their rivals. These things will happen, in part, because of lessons taught and learned in Mr. Miller's bands. So it is too soon to measure his impact on the world around him and on his students, who now touch countless others. But we can already say at least two things.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for changing my life.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for making your students and your family the center of your life.
Thank you from class of 93.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. You're the most hilarious person I know, and thank you for everything that you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, so much for influencing me and my family.
John, we had some great years, some great times together, and I feel blessed to have had those opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I really appreciate your work.
Thank you for the difference you've made in music education and in all of our lives.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. You've taught me so much throughout this year. Mr. Miller, thank you for all that you've done for me and for so many other music educators around the country and around the state. We're going to miss you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Miller, for all that you've done for this band program and for the amazing influence you've been in my life.
John, thank you for everything that you've done for me, starting with my student teaching in 2002. It's been a long ride. We've had ups and we've had downs, but through it all, you've been a constant in my life as a mentor and a friend, and for that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for all that you've done for me and all the other students in band.
John, thank you for everything you've done for me. You are an absolutely incredible mentor.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for all the many things you taught me in band. You've been a great teacher and a great beacon for me, and I thank you for that.
Mr. Miller, you are awesome. Thanks for all of the memories.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for all the courage and confidence that you gave to me and so many other kids.
What I appreciate about Mr. Miller is empowering students and student leaders and parents and I think that's really what has made the program so successful.
John, you've been great, a good friend. Best of luck to you.
Thank you for the insane amount of work you've done, and we all know it paid off in the end, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for everything you've done for me, for the band, for everyone around you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, so much. You have really given me many opportunities, and you've taught me what the gift of music really means.
Thank you so much for being a big part of my family.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, for giving us a place to grow up and learn what we can become.
Mr. Miller, thank you for all that you've taught me and all the skills that you've given to me.
Thank you for touching my life. Thank you for touching my family's life. So again, thanks to you, and best wishes to you and your family in your retirement.